up of calcium and other essential nutrients. So it's important that we get to understand or know certain nutrients that we need to be deliberate about when it comes to our diet. So there are 8 nutrients that we need to be very mindful of, or we need to be self-aware of when it comes to our foods that we consume. So we have calcium. Okay, calcium is an essential mineral in the body because our bones and teeth are made up of calcium. What calcium does is that it helps to strengthen the teeth and promote remineralization. So if your diet is low in calcium, then your teeth is exposed, it promotes weak and brittle teeth. Now, there are certain foods that we can get our calcium from. So for eggs are an excellent source of calcium. Then we have the dairy, so our milk, our cheese, our yogurt. We have our nuts and seeds, that is the almonds. Then we have our leafy greens, so our spinach, kale, broccoli are all rich in calcium. For someone who is a vegan, they are not left out because they don't take how do you call it,
the animal product.
Yes. So for such people, they can also take the non-dairy milk or the plant-based milk. Luckily, these plant-based milk are fortified with calcium, so they are not left out. And then we also have some people who are also lactose intolerant, so their body is not able to digest or break down the lactose, which is a milk carbohydrate, in the dairy or the milk they are consuming. So for such people, they can also have their plant-based milk, such as the almond milk or the soy milk. Then 99% of the body's calcium is stored in our bones and teeth. So there are certain, as we age, okay, our bodies, our calcium stores become depleted, especially in menopausal women, postmenopausal women. Realize that there's a depletion of their calcium stores, and when that happens, their body now resorts to their teeth and their bones to be able to make up or compensate for that depletion. Yeah. So for such people, then they need to be very intentional. So that is where supplementation comes in. For them to take calcium supplements to help boost or enrich their calcium. And then for pregnant women, so luckily in Ghana here, when women become pregnant and start going for their antenatal, at some point in time, they are given calcium supplements or tablets because the fetus is growing rapidly and it feeds on the mother's stores. So whatever the mother is consuming, that's what the fetus also gets. That's where the fetus also gets their nutrients from. So sometimes there might be depletion in the mother's calcium. So when you take the calcium, you take the calcium tablets and supplements, it helps to so that that thing doesn't occur. Then we have another mineral called phosphorus. Okay, a deficiency in phosphorus leads to what you call hypophosphatemia. Okay, so with hypophosphatemia, with a deficiency in the phosphorus, you realize that there's poor bone and teeth development. So for every individual, we have what we call the RDA, or the recommended dietary allowance of 700 milligrams of phosphorus. Now, when you consume one large egg, you have between 75 to 90 milligrams of phosphorus per day. Now you need 700, so you don't have to dwell on one particular food.
2 eggs?
That is what, no, 1 egg is fine. Okay. But I mean, you don't have to dwell or survive on the egg alone. That is why it's important that you consume a balanced diet. You are eating from the first diet, so the food groups, you are eating from your cereals, That's your whole grains. You are eating your legumes. You are eating your nuts and seeds, then your fruits and vegetables, then your protein. So if you eat a balanced diet or an array of food, or you satisfy all these protocols, then you'll be able to meet your RDA, your recommended dietary allowance for the day. Then another important mineral also is vitamin D. Now, what vitamin D does is that it helps the body to absorb calcium, and it also maintains strong teeth and gums. You understand? Now we can get vitamin D from the sun, exposure to sunlight, so the early morning sunlight. You can also get vitamin D from the eggs that you consume. You can get vitamin D from the dairy. So I realize that these nutrients can be found, like they are similar. So when you take an egg, for example,
you are getting your
calcium, you are getting your phosphorus, you are getting your vitamin A, you are getting your vitamin D. Then another essential nutrient, vitamin, is vitamin C. Now, when you are deficient in vitamin C, it can lead to scurvy. And scurvy was one disease that was very common somewhere around the 1500s to 1800s. It killed a lot of sailors around that time, over 20 million sailors or so, if I'm correct. So luckily for us, when you have, the citrus fruits are very rich in vitamin C. So like your oranges, like your grapefruit, like your kiwis. Then you can also get vitamin C from broccoli and cauliflower. Then we have vitamin C also in tomatoes, and we have vitamin C in bell peppers.
Does it matter if these are cooked or fresh?
So for some of them, some of the vegetables, you can't take them raw, so you may have to cook them. But in cooking them, because these nutrients, like for example the vitamin C, is a water soluble vitamin, you don't have to overcook them, and you don't have to expose them to higher temperatures. So low to medium heat, maybe for 3 minutes, it's fine.
Like saute.
It's like sauteing, but yes, for some people in Ghana here, they don't understand that mechanism. So sometimes you realize that we overcook the vegetables, and at the end of the day, we lose all those essential vitamins and minerals that we need from that. Then another nutrient is fluoride. Luckily, we get some amount of fluoride from the toothpaste that we use, but I mean, you can also get fluoride from fluoridated water. I don't know about Ghana here, but in the US, about 74% of the population have access to fluoridated water. That's the tap water. So it has some amount of fluoride in there. But one thing with fluoride is that when you consume more than your body, the recommended dietary allowance, it can lead to browning of the teeth.
Rather than making it whiter,
it can lead to browning of the teeth. So yes, I mean, then you can also get fluoride from the herbal teas and coffee, because the plants absorb the fluoride from the soil. So yes, so the actually 8. You have your calcium, you have your phosphorus, you have your zinc, you have vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, you have protein, and I think, Then
it looks like we've gone through quite a list. And yes. So all this is to prevent tooth decay. Unless you come from that part of the world where brown teeth is desirable, everybody wants sparkly white teeth, at least in Ghana.
Okay, so these vitamins don't necessarily prevent tooth decay, but just to have good and strong, healthy teeth. You understand? Now, tooth decay is one thing. With tooth decay, you realize that in the local parlance, especially when it comes to kids, we say that akolane seshe. Okay, so it's as a result of consumption of certain foods that are high in sugar. We are not against consumption of sugar, but it's the added sugar that is of concern, because WHO advises that when it comes to consumption of added sugars, you consume less than 10% of that, of your total daily calories. So for an average person or average individual who consumes a 2000 calorie diet, now the calorie is a unit of measurement, is the energy that you derive from the food. So for someone who consumes a 2000 calorie diet, 10% of that is somewhere around 200 calories, which is 50 grams of sugar. Okay, and that 50 grams is okay. So that 50 grams of sugar, whether it's cubed sugar or granulated sugar, which equates to about 12.5 teaspoons of sugar. You understand? But you realize that for some of the foods that we eat, you find sugar now these days in almost all the foods that we eat. So when you go to you go to the grocery store, you realize that almost all the items there contain some amount of sugar. And these days, they don't write it as sugar, right? Like right away for you to be able to identify that as sugar. It has so many names. So you see maltose, you see cane syrup, you see dextrose, you see maple syrup, and all those things. Those are different names for sugar. And it's important that we read the nutritional facts label. Ghanaians, we do not like reading nutritional facts label. So you go to the market or you go to the grocery store, and because maybe I want this, I want maybe biscuits, then I just pick the first thing I see on the shelf. It's important that you read the label so that you be able to know the total amount of carbohydrates in there. You'll be able to know how much of it is added sugar, how much of it is naturally occurring sugar, and how much of it is free sugar. So it's important that you read the label. And when you pick an item that has sugar listed as the second or third ingredient, you should know that that product automatically is very high in sugar.
And you should avoid those.
You should avoid those. For a man, an adult man, you should consume, that is your consumption of sugar in the day, should be 36 grams or 9 teaspoons. Okay, and then for an adult woman, is 24 grams or 6 teaspoons. You understand? But when you take a can of soda or sugar sweetened beverages, you realize that it contains more than even that 9 teaspoons of sugar. So just by taking that drink or that bottle of drink alone, you've exceeded the limit for the day. So yes, sugar sweetened beverages are killing us, aside from the fact that, and that is what leads to the tooth decay, because our tooth, okay, when you consume food and drinks high in sugar, you realize that there are some bacteria on the surface of the tooth that absorb, that feeds on that sugar, okay? And when you are consuming that over and over again and you are doing nothing to cut down or prevent it, you realize that then it's going to lead to...
Does it help if you take this carbonated drink and then you have like a good brushing regimen? So you know that you can't avoid our favorites, all of us, our favorites. Good morning to the newsroom and all my people there. You know that you can't avoid them, or you don't want to take them out of your diet entirely. Does it help that you brush and you apply other, you walk? Will it help burn some of the calories from the sugar? Exercising, would that help?
So with the sugar, the added sugars, the most important thing is that make sure that you are consuming them in minimal amounts. If you can avoid it, that's the sugar sweetened beverages. If you can avoid it, fine. You understand? Because the other sugars are not just in the sugar sweetened beverages. Even the confectionaries that we eat, the biscuits, the pastries, the cakes, they all contain added sugars. So if you can consume it in limited amounts, or if you can avoid them, the better. If not, maybe right after that you would have to rinse your teeth or perhaps brush your teeth. We are supposed to brush our teeth at least two times a day, but you know that toothpaste, prices of things are very expensive now, and toothpaste is one of those things that the prices have just gone off the roof. Toothpaste that we used to buy some years ago for like 4 to 5 cedis, toothpaste is now selling for almost 20 cedis or even more for some of the brands. Okay, and for such an individual, because prices of toothpaste have gone up, brushing twice a day becomes a problem. So if that is the case, maybe you would have to rinse your mouth right after eating, and not just even with the sugar sweetened beverages. One other thing is the alcohol. Okay, so before I move on to the alcohol, with the sugar sweetened beverages, aside from the added sugars in there, you have what we call phosphoric acid. So when you open a bottle of sugar sweetened beverages, that sort of gas that you see, that also erodes the enamel of the tooth. So you hear that sound. It's phosphoric. Yeah. I know, right? But I mean, it comes with, aside from the sugar, there's phosphoric acid in there, and that also erodes the enamel of the tooth. So for children less than 2 years, it's not advisable to give them any food or beverage that contains sugar. And for adults, you need to limit your consumption of the added sugar should you want to limit your consumption. One other thing also is the alcohol, because alcohol also leads to tooth decay and also mouth dryness. Now, when you take alcohol, what it does is that it makes you dehydrated, so the body is not able to produce enough water. And it's essential that the saliva helps to cleanse the mouth or the teeth. So when you consume alcohol, one thing it does is that it makes the body to produce less saliva. And saliva is important in protecting the teeth in the sense that it helps to clean or fight off all these, bacteria that lives on the surface of the tooth. So when less saliva is produced, it means that your teeth is exposed to this bacteria that would lead to erosion of the tooth, which causes or leads to tooth decay.
Right.
Yeah. And aside from the fact that heavy consumption of alcohol carries short and long-term negative effects on our body, including our brain and then our liver. So if you can avoid it, the better. But if you would want to consume alcohol, for a man, an adult man, for a day, 2 drinks of alcohol is fine. For a woman, 1 drink. And with the drink, so we have different types of alcohol. You have the red wine, then you have the beer, and then the hard liquor. So for red wine, a glass is fine. And the glass is not filled to the brim. You know, a glass of wine, yes, not filled to the brim. So just 1 glass is okay. But
I'm interested in also the gum, because sometimes we focus a lot on the teeth. We're talking about perceptions that teas and coffees brown your teeth, and so perhaps you should avoid them. But how can we also take care of our gums using the foods that we eat?
Okay, so with regards to the tea and alcohol, yes, if you are taking them in moderation, it's fine. It does some good to the teeth and also to our well-being, our bodies. So for coffee, 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day is fine. Okay, now it's important that we consume a lot of fruits because especially when it comes to the vitamin C, like I mentioned, it helps to prevent scurvy and gingivitis. So gingivitis is inflammation of the gums, and then the scurvy has to do with bleeding of the gums. One thing that vitamin C does is that it helps to protect and promotes good gum health. So for a normal, when you see someone with a red gum, it's not, the color of the gum is bright red. It's not right. A gum shouldn't have a very bright red color. Okay. And when your gums are also bleeding, that means that it's a warning sign to you that your diet is lacking in certain vitamins and minerals, most especially with vitamin C. So it's important that we take our fruits every day, and the fruits form part of the balanced diet because it's part of the 4-star diet that we are supposed to eat or satisfy all the protocol. So your breakfast, your lunch, your supper, you need to make sure that you are eating from across all the food groups. So if you are having one fruit for the day, it's fine. For example, orange or grapefruit or tangerines or whatever it is, pineapple is fine. But make sure that you're consuming a fruit a day.
What can we find in the kitchen, and this would be my final question perhaps, that would help us with toothache? A lot of people have toothache and it's the most painful thing. What are some of the immediate remedies we could find that would help us?
Okay, so with toothache, some people have sensitive tooth because of certain foods that they eat. So when you are eating your food, it shouldn't be too hot. Okay, and you shouldn't be taking very cold drinks. Now when you do that, it erodes the enamel, which causes tooth sensitivity. So for toothache, if you are experiencing constant toothache, it means that the temperature in which you are eating your foods, because you realize that some people bite into ice block, which is not good. When you do that, it can cause even fractures in the tooth, and it can lead to tooth sensitivity. So you realize that that's where the pain and the ache comes. So if you have toothache, I mean, the immediate thing would be maybe perhaps to take a painkiller or something. But it's important that you watch the kind of things you are eating so that you don't experience that constant toothache or sharp pain. Yeah.
Posa, thank you so much for sitting with us this morning and talking to us about our tooth. Key thing for me is read the nutritional fact label on all the foods you buy so that you make sure that where your teeth is concerned, you have the calcium, you have the phosphorus in there, you have vitamin A, D, and C, you have fluoride, and you also have zinc. So these are the nutrients that you need to keep a healthy oral health, and that's what we need to be talking about. Fozia, our nutritionist, has been helping us understand how we can do all these things effortlessly. Thank you once again for making the time. Breakfast returns with the sports segment after the break, and there's more ahead on the show later on with the headlines, the social media corner, time with the Minerals Commission, and of course the big chat on the gospel music industry.